Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
What's up, guys? Unofficial Star Wars here. Hope you're all doing well, and in this video we are going to be discussing a brand new reveal behind the scenes of The Mandalorian Season 3 from Emily Swallow herself, who plays the Armorer throughout the show, into the regards of what she has to say here, some of the theories for The Mandalorian Season 3, but moreover on what she does think about what will go on with The Mandalorian Season 4, giving us a little bit of a tease there as well. Of course, we're going to go ahead, we're going to hop right on into it. In this video, we are going to be taking a read from the Direct's article. I'll have their article linked in the description down below for you guys to check out there as well, as they read Season 3 of The Mandalorian heavily featured Emily Swallow's The Armorer character, but will fancy her return in Season 4 of the Disney Plus show. After Pedro Pascal's Din Djarin was banished by the Armorer from his Mandalorian covert in the Book of Boba Fett, he set out to cleanse himself in the waters of Mandalore, so that he could be welcomed back with open arms to this covert. However, he ultimately did run into some trouble and enlisted the help of not only the Armorer and his Mandalorian friends, but also Bo-Katan Kryze and her group of Mandalorians who had radically different beliefs and were totally separate groups at that. At the end of Season 3 of the show, the Mandalorians chose to unite in order to defeat the Empire, or what was left of it at least, for the time being. But now that they are all back together on Mandalore and the Armorer can stay at her own forge on the planet, fans are itching to know of where her story will go in the upcoming Season 4. This here is exactly where Emily Swallow comes in for what she has to say herself about not only the Mandalorian Season 3, but also the fourth one as well. In a recent exclusive interview with the Direct ahead of her appearance at Fan Expo San Francisco, actress Emily Swallow, who plays the Armorer in Disney Plus's The Mandalorian, was asked about her character's potential return in the fourth season of The Mandalorian. When specifically asked about the Armorer appearing in the upcoming Season 4 of the show, Emily Swallow had stated that she honestly doesn't know, but that she really hopes that the character will be featured. Emily Swallow also recalled what she enjoyed most about the Armorer's Season 3 arc and overall story, specifically noting on how her character and Katie Sackhoff's Bo-Katan defied expectations and actually working together. She says that, in quote, "I honestly don't know. I really hope so though. But I have no specifics about what direction this next season is going off into. I love the Armorer so much, and I love especially that this last season that she and Bo-Katan sort of defied expectations and working together, and I love that. I love that both of them are willing to sort out and look outside these very strongly held beliefs that they've had to see what they are going to benefit with the Mandalorian people as a whole, and take a chance to take a big risk. Because of either of them, they could have lost the respect of their factions by aligning with the other." I mean, that quote right there, really speaking from a storytelling aspect of things, like as into the shoes of those characters, is something that I do enjoy a little bit there, as well as like what she actually thought about the show itself is something I always love to hear from the Star Wars actors, just themselves being the Star Wars, like biggest Star Wars fans out there, of course, as well. Emily Swallow also talked about how she would be interested to see how this new combined Mandalorian society does play out in the future. She says that, in quote, "And I would love to see more of how this new combined Mandalorian society plays out. Of course, I always want to know, like, well, what else is the Armorer going to be up to? What else is she going to do when she's not having to now drag her forge to different planets all the time and being on the run, now that she sort of has a home base?" I mean, that quote right there. I mean, really, Emily Swallow, she's just asking the questions that we're all asking and kind of wondering here as well, as to, you know, what else could go on. And I think that is a question out there that I've kind of been beating around the bush with, in all honesty there, of like, I don't really feel like that there's much of a story to tell with these Mandalorians that are now just kind of living their lives on the planet of Mandalore, kind of giving them full closure and bringing them full circle by the end of the third season of The Mandalorian. But yet, I mean, there's always a story to tell. It might not be, you know, as interesting as we want or think, but something that I did mention in a couple videos ago here on the channel into the regards of The Mandalorian, of course, is that, like, we could kind of just see the planet of Mandalore grow and expand the same way that we have seen the planet of Navarra with Greef Karga, and kind of just see like it through those kind of lenses, essentially, of where we aren't necessarily spending a whole lot of time with those characters or on that specific planet necessarily, but we do give it a visit, you know, maybe once or twice a season to kind of see things, you know, how they're going, and kind of give it a little bit of an update there as well. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing by any means. I think that's a perfect idea as of to kind of what they should and would do with that. Now, at some point, I think that would be a given that maybe some type of Mandalorian civil war would kind of break out, you know, eventually between these two factions. Like, they're going to have, you know, too many different disagreements between just X, Y, and Z, because they're different beliefs, and that's just kind of like human culture, human nature, I think, just overall. So to see how that would play out in the future, not in the near future, but kind of, I feel like that would be like a season 5, season 6 kind of scenario or deal to kind of go on with that whole storyline. That's something else I'll discuss in a separate feature video here on the channel. All the more reason to grab that subscribe button if you haven't already. Now, continuing on, while once again mentioning that she has no certain verification on whether or not her character of the Armorer will return in season 4 of The Mandalorian, Emily Swallow did tease that she feels as though that Din Djarin has to check in with her from time to time, kind of supporting exactly what I just said there into those theories of kind of how we're going to see the planet of Mandalore and the Mandalorian people grow and expand the same way that we see Navarro and Greef Karga kind of grow and expand throughout. Just little glimpses here and there, little visits from time to time. She says that in quote, and I feel like it's been established now that the Armorer is always integral to whatever Din Djarin is doing. I feel like that he has to check in with her from time to time. So I feel like we should see her, but I have no certain verification that we will. I need that quote right there. Now, Emily Swallow was also asked about where she thinks that the Armorer should go from season 3, and now that she thinks that the character story should ultimately be wrapped up, to which she stated that she never really thought about what would tie up her story neatly exactly. However, the actress did reveal that she is curious about the Armorer's history and the overall connection that she has to Din Djarin prior to when the show actually takes place, maybe with potential flashbacks and that, and you know, into those regards, similar to what we saw with season 3 or season 1 actually, of showing us a young Din Djarin. That's like the only time that we ever got flashbacks of a young Din Djarin. So to see something of that in the future and giving us more details, more, you know, exploration onto what went on with the Mandalorian Din Djarin's history and the Armorer, I think is something that would be very neat to actually see. She says that in quotes, I mean, I've never thought about what would tie up her story neatly exactly. I think of her just kind of continuing. I would love to know more of her history though, because I'm curious to know what connection that she had to Din Djarin before everything that we've seen. Who did she know, or who maybe trained him? I'm curious about that. I mean, that quote right there. And as I had mentioned, I think that's exactly something that, you know, us Star Wars fans would like to hear and expand a little bit more on with that overall, showing more of those flashbacks of Din Djarin to his younger years, being rescued by the Mandalorians, of course, there as well. Something I think that they should and could expand on more with. Emily Swallow also goes on to mention that she feels as though that there is room to explore that deep connection between these two characters of the Armorer and Grogu, Baby Yoda, and even talked about some of the experiences that she had with people telling her how they've visually responded to when Grogu comes to the Forge and is shown the flashback to his early life of Order 66. She says, in quote, I'm curious to see what happens and continues with her and Grogu. I think because I'm going back to when, you know, she first met him, she had a reason, practically speaking, to want to kind of get rid of him, because traditionally the Jedi have been threats to the Mandalorians, and she chose not to do that. She chose the directive to protect the foundling above that. So I feel that there's such a deep connection between these two of them, and so many people have told me that they're really just viscerally responded to that scene of where Grogu comes to the Forge and sort of just has that flashback about his own past with Order 66. So I'm very curious to see of how she plays into that furthermore. Ending that quote right there. And, you know, Swallow really does bring up a great point, I think, right there, something that I haven't even really thought about. Like, yeah, the Armorer, you know, her first, you know, interaction with Grogu, Baby Yoda, was trying to get rid of him. He's a Jedi, get rid of him. You know, he's a threat to us. We're enemies, you know, and that kind of barrier going on there. And then fast forward to season 3, all of a sudden, there's kind of like this bond going on, these two characters here, something that I didn't even really realize, to be completely honest with you guys. That's something interesting, something I think that we should and could explore and expand on more with that overall. At the same time, though, thinking about how that would play out in my head, I think that would play out, you know, very similar to what we saw with Greef Karga and his interactions between Grogu in the early days of season 1. Like, he was just kind of like this guy's like a little freak, you know, he's like a little Jedi, he can do stuff with his hands and does, you know, the force healing thing with his hands, right? He thought that, you know, Baby Yoda's just like, Grogu's just like a little freak, kind of, sort of, and then you fast forward to season 3, and he's like, you know, he loves him like his own kid almost. And I really do think we have a big opportunity to see more on with that moving forward with those characters of the Armorer and Grogu. The Armorer actress Emily Swallow also teased the idea of giving the Armorer her own apprentice. Would be interesting, and that the show could also get into her more personal relationships on top of that. Saying that in quotes, I would love to see her get, you know, her own apprentice. I feel that she needs some help making all this armor. I would love to see who she takes on. I don't think that of what any of her more personal relationships look like, but I think it's going to be interesting to get into that. There were a lot of people who had speculated that maybe Ragnar was the Armorer's son. I would really think so, but I do wonder what her history with Paz Vizsla was as well at the same time, and I feel that somebody needs to avenge his death, but I don't know. I need that quote right there. This whole idea of, you know, the Armorer bringing on an apprentice in, you know, future seasons and of the show here is a very interesting idea at the same time as well, and having Ragnar, who was Paz Vizsla's son, the little kid that gets, like, you know, snatched up by the giant bird thing in season 3 of The Mandalorian, is a very interesting idea, and she further does mention, you know, bringing that character back and expanding more on with his character for one thing, kind of like picking up that legacy of Paz Vizsla, you know, despite it being, you know, a minor role, I think, at that, still picking up that legacy is a nice touch, I think, for one thing, but she also mentions about how avenging his death, Paz Vizsla's death, that we do see in season 3 of The Mandalorian, that was kind of unexpected, if I may say so myself. Avenging that, though, is an interesting idea, I think, at the same time as well, and it gives motivation, it gives more purpose for the Mandalorians to want to go after these Imperial remnants, to want to go after Thrawn specifically and especially. However, at the end of the day, Emily Swallow also stated that there's a gazillion things that the show could do with the Armorer and so much more that would be so enjoyable, and that she hopes for the time being that the character can go on and on and on, continuing playing the overall character of the Armorer. She says that in quotes, there's a gazillion things that I think that could be so enjoyable. I don't know what her end game is. I don't know what she would tie all up into neatly with a bow, and maybe that would just be because I don't want to, you know, have it tied up at all. I want her to go on and on. I need that quote right there. And I think we can all agree with that to a point. You know, of course we want to see this overall show and all these characters continue on and continue to, you know, tell these stories, of course, but I think, you know, the inevitable is that all good things have to come to an end at some point, rather sooner than later, or whatever the case may be, of course. This hero being all said, we have some big, you know, teases, I think, going forward for season 4 of The Mandalorian. Based on how season 3 of The Mandalorian ended and concluded, there is no reason to really believe that Emily Swallow's The Armorer won't make an appearance in season 4 of the Disney Plus show. The end of season 3 did tease that Din Djarin and Grogu could be going off on their own journey away from the other Mandalorians for the time being, but as Emily Swallow stated, there will likely at least be, you know, checking in on the Armorer from time to time and the people of Mandalore. However, The Mandalorian will have to continue building towards Dave Filoni's upcoming feature film, his big Mandoverse Cultivation movie that was announced at the beginning of the year at Star Wars Celebration, as serving as a climax to all of these different Mandoverse shows, with all seasons of The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Star Wars Skeleton Crew, everything and anything else going on in this time period. Assuming that the Armorer and the other Mandalorians will be a part of that project, fans can expect to see her more throughout this future of Star Wars. This here all being said, guys, I would love to hear all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. What do you guys want to see with the future of the Armorer character in The Mandalorian Season 4? I would love to hear all of your thoughts and opinions and theories in the comment section down below. Thanks so much for watching today's video. Of course, this has been Unofficial Star Wars. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great one. May the Force be with you as always. Peace out.